Time talking about arrays. Now let's talk about partially filled arrays. Sometimes you want to store some values in the array, but you don't know how many values you store. So what you do an array of large number of elements, let's say 1000 elements, and then you keep track how many elements you add in that array. This is to avoid the fact that you don't know how many elements you want to store in the array. So actually you create large array, but you don't use all the array, you use partial part, yeah, like part of that array. How to compare two arrays? If you have two arrays and you want to compare if the two elements are exactly the same, the elements of the two arrays exactly the same, so we create a flag boolean arrays equal. We make it by default to be true, initialization to true, and then we make count equal to 0, and then we make a loop while array equals, and while it's a true and the count is less than size, we didn't check all the elements, so we check if the first element in the first array is equal to the first element in the second array. If they are not equal, we make array equal false and we add the counter. Next time, if this is false, it will go out of the loop, and then we will print if they are equal or not. So this is the only way to compare two elements. We need to compare elements by elements. So parallel array, sometimes we need to store like information of two things. So we use two arrays. Let's say one array is for ID and one array for the name of the student. So the first array contain IDs, second array contain the names. And we know that the first element in the first array is the ID of the first name in the second array. So it will be like something like this. So this is employee, this is how many hours he works, and this is what's the pay rate of this employee. So we have two arrays. The first array store the hours of the employee, second array store the pay rate of the employees. And if it's the same index, this means it's the same employee. So this employee, he works 20 hours and the pay rate for him is 10.5. So this is the idea of the bar array, is to use two or more arrays that contain related data. We use subscript or the index to know the elements that are related to each other. And arrays may be different in data types. For example, here we have array for the IDs of type integer, array for the average of type size, array for the grades. So at index 0, it's for some student. At index 1, these three values for a different student, and so on. So this is example so how we can use parallel arrays. So we created here two arrays, we make cn for them, and then we printed the arrays for the employees. So it will be, this is the idea of using parallel arrays. Can we use arrays as a function, input function? Yes, for sure. So to pass array to a function as argument, we just write the name of the array. If you want to write prototype, you write int, the type of the array, and these brackets. If you want to write the header, you write int and the name of the array and these brackets. So usually when you pass the array, you should also pass the size of the array so that the function can know how many elements are in this array. Okay, so this is very common, to pass the array and also integer the size of the array. If you want to write the prototype, you write it like this. If you want to write the function header, you write it like this. So this is example like a function called show value. This is the prototype. We write int. It accepts array and accepts the size of that array. It shows value, so it will print the values of the array. So we define constant to be 8, array size, and then we created array size with these values. We call the function show value. This function will print these values. Let's see the function show value. It takes array and size, and it makes loop for the array and print all the values. So this is the output of the program. Can the function modify the array's value? So is it passed by reference or passed by value? Actually, it's passed by reference. So if the function change the value of the array, it will be changed in the main function. So we have to take care of that. Two-dimensional array, we can have two-dimensional array, like it will be like a table. It's not like one array. So we will have rows and columns. So when we create an array, we have two of these brackets. The first one for rows, the second one for columns. So for example, we create exams, rows, columns. It will be like a table. And we can access them using exam2, 2. This means row 2, column 2. We want to change this value to 86. So here is example, like we create constant 3, 4. We created array 3 by 4. So we have 3 division, and for every division we have 4 quarter. We want now to enter these values, so we make 2 loops, nested loops, to cn each value, and then at the end we make another nested loop to compute the total of the cells. So in the two-dimensional array, if you want to deal with them, you have to make 2 loops, nested loops, one for the rows and one for the columns. So this is how we ask for Cn. Every time we ask for the cells, and then we have 2 loops to print the total cells of all divisions and all quarters. We can initialize the two-dimensional array like this. So you have these braces, and inside braces you write every row in another array. So this is array is the first row, this is the second row, and so on. If there is one row is missing, it will be zeros in this row. How to make function call, or how to make the two-dimensional array as in the function. In the prototype you write int, the first bracket is empty, and then the second bracket you write how many columns you have, and here you have the size of the array of the rows. Yeah, so the columns is here, but the rows is here. The header is the same. You write int, name of the array, and this is empty, and this is the columns, and here you write the rows. So for example, this is a method show array that prints two-dimensional array. It takes array. We don't specify the number of rows, it's specified here, but the number of columns are here. And then we make loops for all rows, for all columns, and then we just print the values of the two-dimensional array. So this is another example to call that method. So we can call that method for table 1 and table 2, and it will be print. How to sum all the elements in the two-dimensional array? Imagine here we initialize two-dimensional array like this. How to compute the sum? It's easy. You just make the total equal to 0 here. So total equal to 0. And then you make 2 loops, nested loops. Every time you make total plus equal number of row column. And then you print this value. So how to sum only the rows of the two-dimensional array? So you can do that. You make total equal to 0. So you make a loop for the rows, and then in every loop for the rows you make the total 0, and then you sum the columns of that row, and then you can compute the average and print the value, and keep on. So for the first row you sum all the columns and print them. For the second row, again you sum all the columns and print them, and so on. How to sum the columns? Same way, but we exchange the value. So we do outer for loop for the columns, and here we do it for the rows. So this is how to do the two-dimensional array. Can we have three-dimensional array or more? Yes. So we can define array like this with 3 values. So this is 3-dimensional. If you want use it in the function, first one is empty, and the others you have to fill the values. And the last topic is about the vector. We will not explain it in details, but the idea of the vector is something similar to the array, but The vector, you can add as much value as you want, so you don't need to specify the size of the vector in advance like in the array. In the array you need to specify the size of the array in advance, but here you don't. You just keep adding and so on. We will study it in details later, but for the moment let's ignore these details because we will talk about them later. But just that vector is something similar to the array, but it has the property that we can add as much as we want element. Thank you, and see you inshallah in the next chapter.